Here's how, using my 4-step service pricing strategy, I got to help Laserv from being someone who is not confident about charging for her service to someone who is now earning. Together with Laserv, we had to account for her time-based value. Yeah, and the best way to do that was to go on to step 1 of our service pricing strategy, which is to account for time investment. Yeah, so there are many things that we could do here, but throughout this whole process, we zeroed down to 4 that are main key. Yeah, so 1 is that we had to find out the number of service durations. What do I mean by this? Yeah, so with Laserv, we had to sit down and talk about how long it takes to get someone from being a beginner to a pro. So how long could it take Laserv to get someone from being a beginner who had no skill about projecting to someone who could come up with something that is quick? Maybe a purse, maybe a hat, maybe a wallet, maybe a top, maybe some pair of shorts. Yeah. So that's what we are looking out for. Yeah. Throughout the entire conversations, she got to share with us that it does take a short time for someone to get to do something to produce results. Yeah. In fact, if it is any number of sessions, it could be around 3 to 4 sessions. Yeah. But just as a routine in our way we handle things, we always go with the maximum number because you never know what gets to happen in between. Yeah. So according to Laserv, she said 3 to 4. But what we chose to go out with is 4 sessions. Yeah. So let's keep that in mind. Yeah. Now, the second thing we had to do under accounting for time investment is the duration of each service. Yeah. So how long would each session of interaction between Laserv and her client get to last? Yeah. And based on our conversation with her, she said it doesn't take a lot of time. If someone gets to master the basics, it could be about 1 to 2 hours. Yeah. So when it came to duration, she said 1 to 2 hours. Yeah. But just as it's a routine in the way I do things, I always go for the maximum number. So I chose to go for 2 hours. Yeah. That's the time it takes Laserv to interact with you for the whole 4 sessions. Yeah. So it is basically saying that we are going to have 4 sessions with my clients to get them from being a beginner to being a pro. But with each session we're going to have of the 4, it's going to take 2 hours. Yeah? So basically that's how we can interpret these 2 steps. Yeah. Now, as with everything, yeah, it is known that every time you say it's going to take about 1 to 2 hours, and usually it takes about that. Sometimes it takes more, sometimes it takes less. Yeah. But just to be on the safer side, we had to ask Laserv, how long, or is there any sort of extra time that you might need within the sessions or within the interaction? Could it be an extra session? Could it be extra hours you can get to provide to the client in case they feel non-satisfied, in case the vibes are so high and they don't want to quit and they get to ask for extra hours? And she was, keen and lenient to say that, yeah, sometimes things happen. Sometimes you can anticipate 2 hours, but the vibe gets to be so up and you spend more than 2 hours. Yeah. And because she's into a business, not a hobby, we had to also account for that extra time in case it's there. And for her, she said, probably 1 to 2 hours. And just as you know, it's all my routine. I go with the maximum. Yeah. So she said 1 to 2 hours. And I always go with the maximum. Yeah. So now, with the first 3 steps we see is that when we get to understand the number of duration, which is 4, and then the duration of each session, which is 2, yeah, we get to find that if we say we have 4 sessions multiplied by the 2 hours, that gives us 8 hours. Yeah. So it takes about 8 hours of time for Laserv to get one client from being a beginner with nothing about, or like with no knowledge or no skill about projecting, to get her produce something, to get her produce some sort of result. All right. But now, the fact that there might be some extra additional time, and this could be maybe she's prepping, maybe a client feels dissatisfied with the number of hours, or the vibe is so high that she needs to go in for some extra time. Yeah, that gives us 2 hours. So On the 8 hours, we are going to add 2 hours, and it's going to give us 10 hours. Yeah. So basically, for Laservee to get a client from 0 to 1, that is from being a beginner with no skills about crocheting, to get her produce something, it takes roughly, or on average, 10 hours of her time. Yeah. So now that takes us to the last step and the first major step, which is accounting for time investment. And this step is how much per hour, how much is her 1 hour worth when it comes to charging her service. Yeah. And when we asked her how much her 1 hour could be worth, yeah, when it came to charging, she said maybe 10,000 to 20,000. Yeah. And a pro tip I can give you here that if you're just a beginner, you've never done this anywhere, please get to charge them somewhat, not higher price and not so low price. Just charge the average, yeah, based on what you think you can deliver. Charge the average until when you get to have the skills, until when you get to develop more trust with other people, until when you get to have a bucket of testimonials, then you get to charge highly per hour. Yeah. So that's a pro tip I could get to share with you. And for her, we decided to go for 10,000 because this is her first time. It was in fact her first time doing this. Yeah. So we say, let's go with 10,000. So now, if we are to get the total time-based value of Laservee to get someone from beginner to an intermediate or a pro, we are going to multiply the 10,000, which is her hourly rate, multiplied by 10 hours, and that gives us 100,000 shillings. Okay, so that is her time-based investment, or that's her time-based value. Yeah? But just as with all businesses, yeah, because she's into a service-based business, it doesn't mean that there are no other costs involved. Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, because with any service, there are some extra tiny bit costs that are involved. They may not be as equivalent to that of a product. Yeah, so for those of you who want to do product, I'll make a video, or I already made a video somewhere. You'll go watch it. But just as with a product-based business, even service-based businesses get to incur cost. And that leads us to step 2 that we had to take Laservee through. And step 2 was we are going to get to account for other costs. Yeah, that would be cost of delivery. Yeah? And what we see here is that when it comes to accounting for other costs of delivery or service delivery, there are basically 4 things that you should get to know. Yeah, in fact, if you're there watching this, yeah. But these are the 4 things that we got Laservee to understand. 1, she needed to account for the materials involved. Yeah. So we asked her, could there be materials that you could purchase? And she said, for starters, just because someone or her client didn't have any knowledge, didn't have specific knowledge of where to acquire materials, what materials to use, what quality of materials to use, she had to incur some cost. Yeah. And that could be yarn, it could be the needle. Yeah. It could be a lot of things. But for the basics, she told us 2 things. All you need is yarn and a needle. Yeah. And that's it. So we had to ask her how much of the needle, how much is the yarn, how much is the yarn going to cost you? Yeah. And she was good enough to share with us that the yarn costed about 2,000. It costed about 2,000. Yeah. Then the needle costed about 1,000, giving us a total of 3,000. Yeah. So that is material involved. So the second thing we asked, could there be any paperwork that is involved? And she was like, yeah, because she had to do some prep work. Yeah, she had to type like designs. She had to like give some extra notes. She had to write maybe in case of any other required necessities. She had to put all that on paper. Yeah, and she said the fact that it wasn't much, but it was required, it costed her like 1,000 for the printing work. Yeah? Now, I got to ask her, could there be internet or data was involved? Yeah. And it's so funny that even with the tiniest works like internet, service like crocheting, you get to incur some costs because there was some on and like back and forth communication between her and the client. Yeah. Because you get to find that clients reached a point in time where they were stuck. Yeah. When we're sharing, like when we were talking with her, she said there was a point in time when a client wanted to, get some deeper insight. Yeah. So she had to incur some cost of data. Yeah. It wasn't part of the package, but she's into business. So she had to charge for that. Yeah. So luckily enough, I know this is funny, but yeah, she charged 1,000 for data. Yeah, because she's into business. And everything that gets to um, get involved in terms of business or anything that is business related as far as crocheting was involved, yeah, she had to account for that. And if you're there, probably you should also do the same. Okay. Now, here came the most important of all. When we asked her, are you going to be conducting classes from your own place? If at all you have any, she said she didn't have any school. She didn't have any permanent residence where she could host her classes. And worst of all, she never wanted to host her classes from her place. So, what had to be done? She had to incur some transport costs. And then when I asked her, could that transport cost be sorted by you or by the client? She said, this is all going to be on me. But the fact that it's going to be on me, indirectly, I'm going to be transferring the cost to the client. So I was like, cool. How much would that cost? She said, 6,000. That is 3,000 to 3,000 per. Yeah. So 6,000. Yeah. So there are other many costs that could be involved. It could be refreshments. It could be prep time. Like there are many things. Yeah. But throughout our conversation, these are the four things that we settled to that she had to incur as other costs. Yeah. So when you get to total all these up, we get to see 3,000 plus 1,000 gives us 4,000. If we add the 1,000 gives us 5,000. 5,000 plus 6,000 gives us 11,000 shilling as our cost of delivery or cost of service delivery. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Most of you out there, you could be charging maybe based on the time-based value. It is okay. But trust me, just as we've seen with these two steps, it is known that because you're dealing into a service, you only have to account for the time. No, that is wrong. There are other costs that get to be involved as far as you're trying to deliver your service. Yeah. So if you're only charging based on time, then you're losing out. In fact, your business won't stay longer enough to see you thrive. Yeah. The other thing is that you have to add the cost of delivery, because we've seen that just with all services, just with all businesses, whether product or service based, you have to incur cost. It could be data, it could be paperwork, it could be materials involved, it could be transport. Yeah. So you have to account for all that. Yeah? So when you get to total up step 1 and step 2, yeah, it gives us what we call the minimum base price. Yeah, the MBP. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know what the MBP, that is the minimum you could charge for in any business you're dealing with. Yeah. So less than that, there is no good business for you. If in fact you charge less than that, you're running your business at a loss. Yeah? So that is the lowest you could charge for. Yeah. So when you add up step 1 and step 2, you get the minimum base price. But here's the thing about the minimum base price. Any moment you choose to price your service based on the minimum base price, just know your business is always going to be working or operating at a break-even point. In fact, you won't be making any profits. Yeah. So what will be coming in is exactly what it is that you'll be spending. Yeah. So amount that gets to come in is the exact amount that gets to move out of the business. So you won't have anything to sell. You won't have anything that will get you growing. Yeah. So if in fact you're just starting out, first aim at achieving the minimum base price, at least for some short time. Yeah. I'm not saying that you should do this for a longer time, but aim at doing that for at least the shortest time. in order to see that your business can now operate on itself without you having to get in extra funds to run it. All right. Now, here's the thing. Laservie wanted to get into business. And the first reason as why we all go into business is to make some profit so that we get to have extra amount of money. And maybe some of you is to get your business grow. Yeah, because businesses that don't get to grow, they don't get to motivate you to run any further. Yeah, and that brings us to step 3, which is you have to add in value or profit buffer. So the reason we are doing this is we now want to advance from having to charge the minimum base price to adding in some sort of profit that will see us charge a price that will give us some business sustainability ahead. In other words, we have to charge a price through which we'll get our business getting to run from just break-even point to a point where we get to make some margins of profit. Yeah. So how do you get to do that? You have to account for the value that you get to add into your business. Yeah. Now, when we engaged with Laservie, we had to ask her because, for a fact, the service she was doing wasn't just about teaching. She was adding value onto other people. What sort of value? One, she was saving people time of YouTube. Yeah. Her client would spend hours and hours on YouTube learning a skill. And with YouTube, you can easily get distracted. It doesn't always get to feel so practical. But with her, it had to be a one-on-one coaching with her, all practical and saving you time of YouTube. Yeah. And 2, she was transferring a skill. Yeah. So just that she was doing those 2 added value, she had to charge for that. And when we asked her, how much would you want to charge? She was like, I don't know. But here's a pro tip I can give you. If you don't know about what your service or what your added value could be, just go within a buffer range of about 20 to 40%. Anything between that, from 20 to 40 is good. Less than 20, it might be good, but the profit margins are quite low. Yeah, unless if you're not adding any value. Yeah, and if you're not adding any value, that means you're going to stay stuck at the minimum base price. If you're adding super extra value, go charge beyond 40%, but only if you have enough trust from clients. Yeah. So the fact that she was a beginner, I advised her to go for 20%. So when you add up the total cost-based value plus the cost of delivery, what we are going to get is 111,000. Yeah. And that gives us the total of the minimum base price. Yeah. But just because now we took it a step ahead and we added our value buffer, we are going to get 20% that we opted for multiplied by the 111,000 of 20%. So you could do the math. Yeah. Now 20% of 111,000, that gives us a price, yeah, that Laservie had to charge so that she gets to price her business for sustainability. Yeah. So the more she gets to get clients that get to pay her this amount, yeah, that means her business is going to be able to grow. Her business is going to be sustainable, and it will thrive to see her, go through tough times and all that. Yeah. So probably out there, and you're asking, how do I even get to know how to add this value? Where do I even get to find value? Just let me know in the comments. I'll help you find means of how you can assess how you get to know the kind of value you're providing to your clients. Yeah. So now, with all that being known, here's the thing. It wasn't just that. To some of you, yeah, you might choose to stop there and you're good to go. Yeah. But now, the fact that with Laservie, this was her first time doing this. We had to take it an extra step and go on for step 4. And step 4 was we had to choose the offer packaging. Yeah. So this is what we get to mean. Yeah. So there are basically 3 things you get to do when you're choosing your offer packaging. Yeah. To some of you might say, I'm going to charge full price. And that is okay. Because if it was Laservie, we had to explain to her, is it that you want to choose to charge full price? That could be all the 4 sessions in one go. Yeah. She said, yeah, if a client can, then well. So probably her reasoning was quite great, because when you get to choose full price, it is good for you. And even the client herself gets to have that motivation that, oh, I paid my money in full, so why not just be like sucked in, like go all in on learning and harnessing this training so that I get to get the maximum out of it. Yeah? And as a business, that is what you want to go for. Always find clients that go for full price. Yeah. Now that is one. That could be you charge per full service price. The second one is you get to charge per each session. Yeah. So using LaserV's example, the full price would be the 20% of the 111,000. There are clients who can afford that. If they can, then well and good. And just as a tip I gave you, it is what you will always want to have. Yeah? But there will come cases where people can't afford that. Yeah, it's not that they are broke, but they really can't afford to go for full price. Some want to be like, oh, I can't afford all the four sessions. Maybe they have some basics of like basic knowledge of maybe crocheting, and they want to just polish off, yeah, dust off some stuff on a few things so that they get to master and learn all this. So that is where the second part gets to come in. You get to charge per service session. Maybe they had some basics. Now, instead of taking them through all the four sessions, they need about two. So what you get to do here is you're going to get the full price, slash it by the number of sessions. Yeah. And for LaserV's case, it was 4 sessions. Yeah. So get 20% of that, 111,000 divided by 4. That is going to give us the price per each session. Yeah. So if they want to have 1 session, charge that. If they want to have 2 sessions, charge that. If they want to have 3 sessions, charge that. Now, the beauty of all this is that you don't get to chase away clients. Yeah. So there are businesses that say we only charge full price. Yeah. Those are going to lose out on a few clients. And the fact that LaserV was starting, we didn't want her to go through that same experience. Yeah. All clients that go to come in mattered most. Yeah. So whether they were paying full price, whether they were paying maybe per session, and whether they want to try out, just as we are going to look at step in a few. Yeah. So for her case, we wanted all clients to be catered for. Yeah. So those who charge full price, already sorted, per session price, already sorted. Now we look at cases where there are clients who say, I think crocheting is good. It's a thing that I want to try out. But is it really worth it? Maybe, maybe not. So if LaserV has some sort of marketing strategies that get to help attract, wanna try out clients, then this is where she gets to put this in practice. Yeah? So she gets to charge per first service trial. Yeah? So for any client that wants to try out her services, this is what she had to do. Yeah? And this doesn't have to be much. Yeah? Because when we introduced this within the choosing offer packaging, we had to steal the idea. Yeah, we stole like artists. So at one point, I wanted to do some thumbnail design, and there was this software or packaging software or software as a service. I even don't know what it's called. That gave an offer for that. Yeah, and all you could do is pay for $1 and do a trial of 1 month. Yeah, you do like 30 thumbnails for that whole $1. And when we analyzed that, I was like, wow, this is a good strategy to offer. So we had to bring it in and introduce it to LaserV that there might be clients who want to try crocheting, but they're not sure whether it is a thing they want, but maybe they want to try it out. If it's good, then they pay full price. So we told her you could charge per first session trial. For those of you who want to try it out, you could charge like 10% of the per each session service. Yeah. So you get what you had for dividing, or you get what you had for getting the 20% of the 111,000 slashed by 4 sessions, then get that and then multiply it by 10%, yeah, or 20% or 50%. In fact, just go for 50% of the per each session price. Yeah. To some of you might call it discount, but this one may be discounts for those of you who want to take it that way. But for her case, it was per first service trial. So 50% of each session off. Yeah. Now, after all this session, when we asked and interacted with LaserV after 24 hours of our interaction or one-on-one coaching, this is what she had to say. You can read it, or you can pause the video and read it for yourself. Yeah. So if you're out there and you feel like you're not clear of what your pricing should be, maybe you have a product-based business, maybe you have a service-based business, but you lack the clarity. You're not confident about the pricing you want. Yeah. Maybe it's your first time, because we've seen with Lisa V, she's into crocheting, and it was her first time to do this. But she got a client 24 hours after our interaction. Yeah. So why don't you just check the link in the description and maybe book a call with us? Yeah. We could get you to solve this within a minute. So with that being said, that is how we go to help Lisa V price for her service in under just 4 steps.